Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. You owe them nothing. Advice: please forgive me if this has the wrong flair. There are a lot of things that us betrayed spouses need to come to terms with when D-Day happens. But if I can single one out for now, it's this: you don't owe them anything. No, really. You don't owe them anything. When you are in a committed relationship with someone, you're making a promise to each other to not betray the one who is exposing their core to the other. With the marriage, this comes even more poignant. So when they turn around and betray you with infidelity, all bets are off. The vows have been broken. The contract is now null and void. You don't owe them anything. Anything. You don't owe them your time, your energy, or your kindness. You don't owe them forgiveness, or understanding. You don't owe them any attention whatsoever. You don't owe them money, resources, help with their new lives, or any sort of recovery they may need to go through. You don't owe them any sort of protection from the consequences of their actions. You don't owe them any defense of their character. You don't owe them any easing of any pain they may be feeling. You certainly don't owe them any chances, no matter how many times they beg and plead for it. You don't owe them anything. The only thing that should be expected from you is your departure. Anything after that, especially anything they want from you, any sort of kind word, gesture, or acknowledgement, is a luxury. A blessing, even. Something that even they know they don't deserve. Because you don't owe them anything. They owe you. Anything they want from you, anything you are inclined to give them, beyond the bare minimum when kids are involved, they have to earn. You are no longer obligated to give them anything of yourself without any sort of hard conditions. They lost that privilege when they decided to betray you. The old compact is broken, scattered to the winds. You are no longer held by it. You are not obligated to make another one with them. You are not obligated to be friends, to let them back in, to talk things over, or even to answer them in any way if they try to reach out to you later. Anything you offer to them should be considered a courtesy, a kindness, a mercy. It's nothing that you should feel is obliged to them. To say nothing of them feeling that way themselves. This is true even with reconciliation. In fact, the rare chance of reconciliation even working hinges upon the understanding of that fact. You don't owe them anything. This is something I came to understand after my D-Day happened, and it's the one thing that helped me get past the pain and the shock of it. For those of you suffering from infidelity right now, hopefully posting this up will help you. It's helpful, and I think it helps to explain why as the BS, it's difficult to manage behaviors within the relationship in early days. You cheated on me, but you're telling me that I have work to do? That I had a responsibility in the failed relationship? That I wasn't perfect? This sentiment, when a BS is open to any kind of relationship other than North Carolina, is very hard to process. I understand that the WS wants to make their point, is frustrated, and feels the relationship has become one-sided. However, that's the cost of taking control, decisions, trust out of the relationship in the first place. Cheating breaks the fundamental trust and contract of marriage, and the BS had no choice or control in that decision that mortally impacted them. Well, so I'm not standing up for cheaters or anything, and no, you don't owe them anything, but at the same time, claiming they owe you? You can't say it's over, marriage vow broken, null. And you owe me because of our marriage in the same sentence. People are allowed to process their trauma, and this is not transactional or black/white. Not sure you've seen what happens when contracts are violated. To those cheaters out there, I know there are some people on the adultery sub who lurk here from time to time, probably to then discuss with their fellow adulterers how mean everyone's over here, and how they just don't understand you, your needs or your circumstances. This post is basically for you. I probably could be posting this over there, but honestly, I don't belong there. I actually believe in loyalty and honesty, and, quite frankly, the behavior you guys try to justify disgusts and disappoints me. And I'd get banned just being honest over there. But this is not to say that I don't get it. Kind of. You guys say you have your reasons. You've had a dead bedroom for years. Your spouse is not being affectionate. You're tired of feeling taken for granted. You don't feel loved by your spouse anymore. You need something new in your life. You're missing that spark. You want to feel desired again. You want that feeling of being in love again. Maybe your spouse is being abusive to you. Maybe your spouse straight up despises you. Maybe they cheated on you first. And then you find that there's someone else out there who can give you what you want. You bite into the forbidden fruit, and then suddenly you're happy again. You got that spark, that love for life again. You feel desired, and worthy. You can't get enough of it. You need to be with the AP more. It's what you live for. It feels so wonderful. And hey, what the others don't know won't hurt them, right? You can hide your tracks. The problem is, I tend to hear similar things from substance abusers. Life is hard, dead bedroom, job sucks, spouse stressing you out, life feels dreary, bad things happened in the past, etc. Okay, here's some heroin. Or meth. Or crack/cocaine. Or some good old alcohol. You get that high you were looking for. And now you can move on. Until you need that next hit. And of course, what the others won't know won't hurt them, right? You can cover your tracks. I know that dealing with reality is something that is becoming harder and harder for more and more people to deal with, but you have to understand that no matter how hard you may try to escape it, there are consequences for your actions. And no matter how much you may think you may be good at hiding your misdeeds, no matter how much you scheme with your friends, no matter how many tips you may read from fellow cheaters on CD subreddits, you're going to get caught. You are not that clever. You are not that special. And your number will come up. To put this into perspective, think about how many US government conspiracies that have been exposed over the years. Iran/Contra. The Tuskegee experiments. The planned terrorist attacks on Cuba. The LSD tests on citizens. We found out about this stuff. And these were things that were being hidden by high-ranking government officials, people who had a vested interest in making sure the public didn't find out. These were professionals. They were paid to do this. They had the backing of the US government behind them. And they still got caught. And here you are, thinking you're clever because you can delete messages from your cell phone. Also, you are hurting other people. I know the self-delusion is strong on this point, and you have other cheaters trying to reinforce that notion, since they also have a vested interest in believing it, just like other meth heads have a vested interest in reassuring other meth heads. But to think that you aren't hurting others with adultery is just lying to yourself. It does hurt other people. The lack of respect you have for your spouse does leak through, and they do notice, even if only subconsciously. They'll sense the disconnect. Your kids will, too. The lack of agency you give your spouse by forcing them to live with someone they probably wouldn't want to be with if they knew is reprehensible. They think you actually love and care about them, and would never do something like this to them. The fact that you think this is okay speaks volumes about how messed up your morality is. This isn't even bringing up the possibility of STDs messing them up on top of that. Did they really deserve all that from you? Especially if they are actually a loving spouse? And you know that all this is wrong. I don't even have to say deep down, you know this is wrong, you know this consciously. Because no one doing something that they feel is innocent would do whatever they could to not get caught. If you're not happy, communicate. Talk to them about it. If you already did, and they still aren't listening, then be the adult. Leave. But what if I can't leave? That's a retort I tend to see, and even heard from others I've talked to about this. What if I don't want to lose my house/kids/income, etc.? What if I can't afford to? See the above. You are going to get caught. When that happens, you're going to lose all of that anyway. And you'll be in an even worse position to negotiate separation terms than you would have if you had just been honest and started the breakup process honestly. To say nothing of what would happen to your reputation. You know what's at stake for committing such an act of betrayal on your partner, just like the drug addict has been told the risks of grabbing the needle. The damage that will result is much worse than you simply confronting what is making you unhappy, and taking the responsible action for fixing that. But people keep picking the irresponsible choice, sing about how great things are while they are living in their fantasy world, vilifying those calling out their behavior, and then bemoaning their fate when the other shoe drops. I get it. It's a human thing. People do this sort of crap all the time. There's a reason why I picked the Reddit name I use. I get it. But it doesn't mean I have to excuse it. I expect better from people. And you should, too. Especially from yourself. We had one of their own come and try to defend the indefensible. Always fun to see that. Losers. The user has run away from some hard truths, so the thread is now locked. The dead bedroom and other excuses are just excuses. Many of them are just out and out lies. I've seen that close up. A buddy of mine complained to me that his wife told him that she was asexual and refused to have sex with her ever again. Weeks later she hit on me. When I said no, she slept with his best friend. You can't exactly trust a liar to tell the truth. Even if they are true. Leave. They don't come here because they think they're getting beat up. They come here to laugh at all the chumps that refuse to betray and abuse their partners just to get off with someone else. I don't compare them to drug abusers because that makes them feel like they have less accountability. That we should feel sorry for them. That they've had a rough time and are deserving of empathy and help. They choose to hurt people, in full consciousness and autonomy. They are not victims trying to mask trauma. I prefer to compare them to domestic abusers. Calculated manipulation. Deliberate psychological abuse. All in the name of getting to do what they want. I see what you mean. Drug abusers aren't exactly at the same level. Most times, they are suffering from something, and are taking substances to help them cope with whatever they are dealing with. However, the reason why I am making the comparison is because of the addiction that drives them, the things they inevitably end up doing to feed that addiction, and the fallout that results from it. I also agree that domestic abuse is more akin to what these people do, and that does need to be brought to light. But sometimes you have to make a less apt analogy to get the point across to the right people. I 100% see where you are coming from. Though it'll fall on deaf ears. They're like teenagers rebelling against their parents. Their parents, SOs, are stupid, and know nothing about anything, so they'll never get caught. I remember when I skipped school and took a trip to a city over an hour away and I thought I was the shit. Spent ages with my friends concocting my story, and the minute I got home, my mom asked me how school was, setting me up to lie to her face, and when I said it was fine, and lied about what I did in class, she was like had a call from the school. The bus driver of the ride you took out of town contacted the school and said a bunch of kids wearing the school uniform had gotten on. Just reporting it in, since he wasn't sure if we were meant to be off that day or not. And my face just fell. They think like a 15-year-old me. There is no getting through to any of them. Well put. Though you also hit on why I don't see the reason to post this at the adultery subreddit. They are stuck in the throes of stupid teen syndrome. And it would be one lone sane voice in the middle of a delusional mob. When you got the gang behind you, you can drown out and attack any voice of reason. But we know we get a few stragglers sneaking off over here, every now and then, for whatever reason, and out here, they can't drown out the truth of their actions. They can sneer at it from their little corners, but out here, they can only look at it silently. So I posted here. That way, I can get my word out to them. And when they inevitably get caught, they can't say no one warned them. I give this post 2 snaps, a high five and a moonwalk. Good job. Awesomely put, clapping hands, clapping hands, clapping hands. You write well. Spot on. Leave. Also, don't line up the person you will be leaving for before you do. Exit affairs are still affairs and in some ways worse, though not in all ways, though I don't think that seems to be the primary type of affair discussed there/here. True. Though I still count exit affairs as affairs. Bet someone is gonna post part of this on the adultery subreddit and take it out of context and say something like, he just compared us to drug users, or he just compared us to conspiracy theorists. Funny. That's what happened below. Tongue. One of the best posts that I have read about cheaters in a long time. Well written. That brought tears to my eyes. It is so true, and a better analogy would be hard to find. Thank you very much. Since your original response was directed to me, and because my post was intended for those such as yourself, it's only fair that I respond. At least once. It's interesting to me that you state that I need to learn how to frame an argument, and that my own take is flawed because I supposedly stopped drawing similarities where it's convenient. But then you don't really bother to properly contest the main points that I'm actually focusing on. That the act of cheating on a supposedly beloved spouse is a reprehensible act, that you are addicted to the thrill of it, that you are going to get caught despite your best efforts to hide it, that the very act of hiding it shows you know this to be bad behavior, and that you are hurting the people you claim to love. Instead, you decide to accuse this subreddit of hatred, as if that was a way to counter what I stated, and then playing the victim after you got downvoted. That's not an effective way to plead your case. I took the liberty of reading your back and forth with Cole Brunel. From what I understand, most of what you were able to offer for your actions was deflection and rationalization. Even a little bit of grandeur, Professor X versus Magneto? Really? You say that you were cheated on, and so you cheating back balanced the scales. You say that you didn't break any laws, basically minimizing what you did. You bring up the fact that morality is a human construct, to further minimize breaking any agreed rules of ethics that human society has upheld. You call out those who respond with bitterness and anger as if they are wrong to feel the way they feel for being betrayed. Even as you also admit that you wanted to batter the person you found out was sleeping with your wife earlier, and even show some of that resentment in your second to last paragraph. In short, your counter-argument isn't much of an argument at all. It is simply the ramblings and self-justification of someone who knows what they've done is wrong. In short, the typical human denial of oneself. I'm not going to hide the fact that I have no acceptance for the act of cheating on someone. The reason for this is because it's more than just cheating. Cheating is when you look up answers to a test. Cheating is applying a God mode hack to a video game. Cheating is giving yourself some unaccepted edge to win at something, or achieve. Adultery is different. Infidelity is different. When you commit adultery, you are betraying someone. And that someone is the person you claim to love. This is the thing, adulterers. I think I should just stop calling them cheaters. I personally think it's too light a word, want to gloss over. This is something they don't want to allow themselves to fully comprehend, some actually can't. Those are the narcissists. Because if one does, then they have to fully face the fact that they have just committed an unconscionable act upon the one they claim to care about. There's no good justification for that. The damage one suffers from such an act done to them is monumental. It changes a person. The emotions one feels after one goes through this is extreme. Hence this particular subreddit. You claim to take umbrage at taking the trauma of drug addicts lightly, but you can't understand the trauma of the betrayed. By the way, I knew exactly what I was doing when I made the comparison to substance abusers. I happen to see similar justification and behavior between them and adulterers. The basic motivation here is, I deserve to feel happy, and I'll do whatever I want to achieve. It doesn't matter what damage is done to you and others, what matters is self-gratification. That, and the addiction. So many adulterers are addicted to the thrill of the affair, similar to the substance abuser being addicted to the drug. I knew someone who once argued with me about her cocaine addiction. She told me that she knew that it wasn't the best thing she could be doing for herself, but it made her happy. She wanted to feel happy, and the drug was how she was able to feel better about herself. Never mind the fact that she had a kid, was living at home with her parents, and couldn't even have the kid with her because of her circumstances, and was endangering her ability to still be in that child's life with her drug habit. And never mind the fact that she was also bringing another single mother down with her, getting her to share in her habits so they can party together. None of that mattered, because she wanted to be happy. No regard for her well-being, her self-worth, or the well-being of the one she claimed was her best friend. And no real consideration of the effect it would have on her child. All that mattered was her own selfish need. Are you beginning to see why I made my comparison? I don't say this to demonize substance abusers, or others who went through trauma. I make this comparison to nudge you, and other adulterers, to see yourself, and to see your actions for what they are. No excuses. No deflections. No blame shifting. Bringing up past trauma only goes so far, even when it comes to substance abuse. Yes, addicts have gone through trauma, and/or are suffering from some kind of mental distress. Sure, people are linking trauma with adulterous acts, though it's interesting how the trauma suffered by the betrayal is downplayed. Doesn't mean the acts themselves are good ones. No one is saying to addicts, "Oh, I didn't know you went through so much as a child. I get it now. Keep hitting the pipe." No, we do our best to pull them away from such actions, and guide them to healthier ways of coping with their issues. And we also try to help them to make good with any others they may have hurt along their path, and help them make better relationships with people in the future. Why should it be any different for adulterers? Because you feel sad that you were called bad things? You complain that people are saying vicious things about you? Okay, so they are. Some get a lot of glee out of it, too, such is the pain they're in. What does that have to do with the ethics of your behavior? What does that have to do with whether those actions were warranted? Why does the focus have to be on what others are saying, instead of what you are doing? You stated that you engaged in infidelity because your wife did first. I get it, the need for revenge, the thing you are blaming the people on this sub for, yet you admit you engaged in as an excuse for your actions. And no, that wasn't justice. Real justice would have been to just divorce her. That's what I did when my wife cheated. I made a vow when I married her, and if anything, I'm a man who keeps to my word. If I said I wouldn't betray her trust, I wouldn't. I'll just part ways instead. What you've done was stoop to her level. You became what she is. And you know it's wrong. That's why you're so defensive, and would rather focus on the anger in this subreddit, than on your own actions. You would rather give me a lecture on how to make better arguments than to really come to grips with what's going on in your own head. If it's any consolation to you, I'm not here to call you vile or slimy or whatever. That wasn't the purpose of my post. My post was simply to point out the points I listed above. If all you can come up with to counter all that is to say that you aren't a bad person, one should take into account the trauma that adulterers have, that you feel you had good reasons for betraying your spouse, and that people here are mean, then I believe you're the one who needs to look at how to craft an argument, since that doesn't really address my points. Though honestly, that's among the least of your priorities. People make bad choices all the time. It's part of being human. Thing is, the actions we take reflect who we are at that moment. Our actions show who we are, not our words, or our desires, or what we wish for, or even, in some ways, our intent. What we do shows who we are. If we want to be seen as good people, if we want to see ourselves as good people, simply wishing it were so, or claiming it were so, or being defensive against those who claim the contrary isn't going to cut it. What we do matters. You want to be a better person, then commit to better actions. The past can only dictate things so far. You live in the present. Commit to your actions in the present. Make better choices in the present, that's what will produce a better future for you. Don't make excuses for what you did. Own your actions. Expect better from yourself. And do better. Or don't. you can decide to continue making bad choices. But if so, there's no point getting upset when others call you and others like you out for them. The difference between adultery and this sub is an adulterer doesn't set out to cause harm or emotional distress. The self-delusion and self-centeredness inherent in this statement is staggering. You, and other adulterers, are probably thinking that all you wanted to do was find someone else to sleep with. Or that you deserved happiness no matter how you got it, and as long as your partner didn't know, what's the harm? Or, in your specific case, they already did it to you, so tit for tat. What you, and the others, don't seem to acknowledge is that he's very act of deceiving your partner into thinking you're being faithful, when you're not, is an act of harm. The second you decide that you are going to sleep around with someone else other than your partner, and hide that from them, you are actively setting out to cause them harm. It doesn't matter that you think it isn't, and it doesn't matter that you all lie to yourselves about it. It is what it is. Also, what goes on during the affair also shows this statement of yours to be false. How many times do we hear about all the times the adulterer starts unnecessary fights with the spouse during the affair, badmouths the spouse to the one they are having the affair with, takes money the spouse brought in to treat the affair partner, make plans to completely screw the spouse over so that they can live happily ever after with their new partner. And this is to say nothing of the attitude of adulterers who think that the spouse deserves the deception because they didn't wash the dishes for the umpteenth time, or forgot an anniversary, or fell asleep during a movie, or was recovering from an injury and so they couldn't have sex the way the adulterer wanted. And yes, I've seen all these things described and more. All that, but they aren't intending to cause harm? Are you kidding me? The fact that you are still trying to find blame with the people who are the victims of adultery because of how they respond to betrayal says all I need to know. It doesn't matter that next to no one responds to betrayal well, that this sub was made for those still stuck in the anger stage to have an outlet to let that anger out. This place is just an outlet for that bubbling rage associated with infidelity that is too familiar for far too many. And that it's a response to another sub that actually supports, celebrates and encourages active deception and emotional and mental harm against unwitting spouses. No, this place is worse because people are full of hate. We're not supposed to go into why these people may be feeling what they are feeling, or the amount of engagement that went into what made them angry in the first place. We're not supposed to acknowledge their pain, no, we're supposed to condemn the people on this sub because of the rage they express towards those that actively hurt them. We're supposed to wag their fingers at them because they didn't turn the other cheek after being betrayed. This is the same sort of rationale that I see when people condemn those for throwing rocks at the soldiers who bombed their towns and killed their families. So far, you've said nothing here that convinces any of the people in this sub that you don't deserve the scorn they have for you and other adulterers. If you can't figure out why, or if you think the reason is because of hate, then you've got a whole lot of maturing to do, and you are in no condition to try to have meaningful discussions on this topic with anyone. This board has encouraged violence. Where? This board is full of people who wish ill on other humans, and this board condones and supports it. Again, where? Just because your lying pants say so, doesn't mean it's true. Side note, if you're getting vile PMs or being told to off yourself, then you're reporting those PMs and those accounts are being handled by the admins. Not by this subreddit. I have removed comments that go too far and I have banned users for the same. And I will continue to do so. And your buddies will continue to help by reporting every little things. All that works just for me. My little helpers make it so I can ban the troublemakers before the admins even have to deal with it. Hate might not be the answer, as indeed it doesn't accomplish anything. But you are the enemies, because you chose to. You decided to enjoy destroying the lives of other people. Most likely children too, there are extremely few exceptions. No rational argument can be made about why you're not condemned to prison by law. Curiously, the argument most people think is a good reason, is about how it would be difficult to prove. Rape is insanely difficult to prove to the point that barely anything gets a rapist imprisoned, yet it's still a crime. You have no rational right to be anywhere but in prison. Yet, you're not in prison. Justice is not doing its job, and forcing everyone to deal with you being out there. That's how hate is made in the hearts of those who would never want to hate. Hate might not be the right thing to do, but doing everything that can be done against you is the right thing. The more difficulties thrown at you, the less power and leeway you have left to abuse the people you think are foolish enough to trust you. That includes, despite its pettiness, being as disrespectful, and as calling out, as can be in these virtual spaces, where unprovoked abuse is not accepted. My country doesn't legalize doing yourself justice. Still, it's extremely common, with all genders, that violence found out as a reaction to being cheated on, is punished by a slap of the wrists. It shouldn't be that way. Infidelity should not be treated any differently to all the other ways to force traumatisms for life upon many other people, and self-justice should be punished too. But we don't have the right way, so the tolerance upon killing the person who did all they could to end your life, is the second best. This message was not actually addressed to you, but to people who may think you showed some perspective. Maybe you did, and I clarified it. You're a pathetic parody of a person. A slimy vermin that deludes itself into thinking it's human. Because you chose to be. You were given a world and a life to try and enjoy, and you decided to do that by ruining others. This is the truth, and nothing about you is more relevant than this truth. Postscript. I love the downvotes for saying hate is never the answer. That's exactly what I would expect. Ha ha ha. Oh you. That isn't why you're being downvoted, silly. Intended audience here. That's why. But you knew that. There's no excuse. I've heard that's a better answer to exiting the relationship. Honestly, it's all BS. What love is. Reflections. This is something that has been on my mind for a while. I'd been meaning to post this up a while ago, but I wasn't sure where to put it, or if it really needed to be said. But upon recently seeing more posts from WSs claiming to still love their BS after betraying them multiple times, I feel compelled to write this now. I do this in the hopes that it will help the reconciling couples here, but also help the BS out there who may be considering reconciliation, but isn't sure of what the right decision would be. And the WS out there who may need to hear something they need to come to terms with. So, here's my premise. A lot of people don't really know what love is. Probably sounds obvious to those reading this, but I think even in subs like these, some people may have the wrong idea. Let me explain. Let's start with the easy stuff. We know that love isn't just infatuation. It isn't just lust. It isn't just those warm fuzzy feelings that one gets when in a new relationship. It isn't an obsession. It isn't possessiveness. Pretty standard statements, sure. But then, the answers I sometimes get when I talk about this with people don't exactly denote love, either. People may say that love is trust, or commitment, loyalty, understanding, respect. These are all good things, and they certainly are a part of a loving relationship. But they aren't exactly love, in and of itself. More like aspects of it. I sometimes hear people say that love is a verb. That's a lot closer to the real thing, but there is something else we could say that touches on it a lot better, I think. Love is simply the recognition that you and the other are one. That's it. Think about yourself. Would you, say, take a cleaver and cut your hand off? Or how about drinking a glass of bleach? Probably not. You know these things are harmful to you, and if you actually care about yourself, you wouldn't do it. Now think about someone you love. The things you wouldn't do to yourself, you wouldn't want to do to them. The things you wouldn't tolerate yourself, you wouldn't allow them to tolerate. You care for them, just as you would care for yourself. This is love in a nutshell. Sure, we can say that there are different types of love. Sibling love, parent-to-child love, love between friends, etc. and of course, romantic love, which is the main concern for those here, Of course. They all have different levels of intensity and ways to express them, but they all have that one fundamental aspect about them. That you and the other are one. And as you would care for yourself, and keep yourself from harm, so would you do for them. This is why we tend to find that those who don't love themselves, are incapable of properly loving others. How many cheaters have expressed deep-seated issues with their own self-image, and self-worth? Meanwhile, you may find someone who doesn't even like another person, but may still treat them with a level of respect higher than how a WS will treat a BS during an affair. This is because one is able to consider how the other may feel. It's the golden rule all over again: treat others the way you would want to be treated. We look at it as the ultimate ethical guideline, but it also reveals the mindset of someone who understands what love is. This, by the way, is why I tend to shake my head whenever I see a WS say that they love their BS even while they are still in the middle of their affair, or when making excuses for said affair after they are caught. No, they don't love them. The simple fact of the matter is that they are doing to their partner something that they would not want to suffer themselves, and they are doing it for self-gratification. That is not love. Or at the very least, is not a love that really means anything. It should be regarded with the same skepticism one would have when someone claims to care about their health even though they drink themselves to a stupor every night. Love is selfless, not selfish. Someone doing something harmful to someone they claim to love out of self-gratification is not showing the type of actions one who loves the other would do. Even those WSs that are pushing for reconciliation may not really love their BS, despite their insistence. Too many times, when asked why they want to save their marriage, we hear about how good their BS is, or how well their BS treats them, or how they want to spend their life with them. This all sounds more like someone afraid to lose what they had, usually a sense of security, rather than someone who truly cares about the one they've hurt. When I see people who have hurt someone they truly love in some way, physically, mentally, emotionally, they tend to go into something akin to panic mode. OMG, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? What can I do? Here, let me help. Those who don't really have much care and respect for the other tend to try to minimize the damage. It didn't mean anything. It was just an accident/mistake. It wasn't that bad. Healthy people tend to not trivialize their own pain, and they don't trivialize the pain of those they love, especially if they end up causing that pain themselves. The thing is, they tend to do their best to not cause them pain to begin with. If it happens, they do their best to soothe it. This ultimately means that love isn't just an emotion we experience. It's a state of mind, and a way to live. It is a way to deal with others around us, and it takes active work to keep going. If one truly wants to say that they love the one they are with, they have to internalize this, especially if they find themselves having to regain their partner's trust. As we work on our relationships, no matter what state they may be in, I think it's prudent for us to really understand what love is, and what it really entails. I think that if we do, it will be easier for us to not settle for anything less than what we deserve from our partners. And those who have hurt their partners will understand what it will take to truly make amends to them, and be the partners they deserve. I'm not saying my perceptions on love are perfect, but it's what I believe. We tend to make defining love more complicated than it really is. When Miso and I first started dating, we talked about our idea of love and what we think it looks like. We both said the same thing: just be nice to me, be good to me. We also agreed that love is about giving, not receiving. That conversation gave me the clarity that my unfaithful ex saw love completely the wrong way. For him, love was about how I made him feel. When you define love based on how someone makes you feel, I often read here, I love him/her because he or she makes me feel special and wanted. That's not love, that's your ego. No wonder my ex was cheating, because when I didn't make him feel that way, he sought it from others. No one can make you feel good 24/7. Absolutely. This is love with true empathy. Nicely written. Thank you for taking the time to share these thoughts. I wholeheartedly agree with every single bit of this post. Thank you for this write-up. You took this logically plus broke this down step by step while still making it comprehensible plus gave examples that everyone who is a WS or BS will have seen, heard. Thank you for this op. I hope everyone in the sup has a chance to read this. In many ways I love my partner more than I love myself, and I'm trying to get to a place of self-love so I can love her better. I am a selfish human being. I know this. If I wasn't, then I wouldn't have cheated. But selfishness isn't synonymous with self-love. People who truly love themselves aren't selfish and self-absorbed. I envy those who are so selfless, kind, generous, and giving, because I know that at the core of it all, they love themselves. I want to love myself. I think another thing that gets overlooked is this: love takes work. Hard work. And this fits in well with your theme of two lives becoming one. The old saw about love being a verb is so true. It requires sacrifice, compromise and communication. It goes from being my life to our lives. But it is also the most rewarding thing I have ever been a part of. When you get infidelity in the mix, it blows up that entire dynamic. And, even though we are now reconciling, I will always be the guy whose wife had an affair. And that stupid ass affair will always be there lurking in the background. However, at the end of the day, I have chosen to forgive and to reconcile. And I am simply not going to hold that over her head for the rest of her life. I certainly would not want to be judged like that for my worst decisions, and I have made some dumbass decisions before. And I also believe that what we are building now is going to outshine our old relationship. She has buckled down and done some hard and painful work on herself. Change is so fundamental that I noticed it right away the first time we met after the divorce. And changes that have made me decide to marry her again. Great post. Thank you. I think another thing that gets overlooked is this: love takes work. Hard work. Exactly. Unfortunately, too many people aren't willing to put in the work. Until it may be too late, that is. Still, even if what one had was destroyed, the pieces can be reused to build something new. Love is like that. I agree with everything you said, with one big but. Warning, this touches me personally, so this is a little emotional. It's not intended as an attack on you. You assume that we are all mentally healthy, capable of making rational coherent thoughts, free of obsessions, compulsion or addictions at all times. That is pure fantasy, even for the best of us. Let alone the rest. There are millions of people in this world with undiagnosed mental health issues, traumas that have shaped them into broken human beings, doing broken human beings. I can tell you as an ex-addict, there were times in my addictions where I was wondering why am I doing this, but felt compelled and did it anyway. Willpower couldn't stop it. Every time was the last time. It only stopped when I started dealing with the underlying mental health issues. This one might speak to a few people. Have you ever felt down? Have you ever reached for a block of chocolate, then ate the whole thing? You know you're going to be sick, you know it's not good, but somehow you do it anyway. Imagine that, multiplied. Why? In my case was molested as a child, sodomized by in-laws, exposed to hardcore porn from an early age and then bullied as I was growing up, with a mother not really there. We're all a little bit effed up, but some of us are really effed up. Doesn't mean we can't love, but it means there is a ticking time bomb that is triggered under certain circumstances and logic. Reason goes out the window and we just do plain dumb things. We're still responsible for what we did, nothing excuses that. Being effed up absolves us from personal responsibility, ever. Likewise, I feel it's ignorant saying anyone who's cheated is not capable of love or don't know what love is. I fully understand that a rational mind doesn't make these decisions, and that a rational mind cannot comprehend why a person would do irrational things. But I know that I have always loved, and will always love my wife. Now 2 years into sobriety I am geared for a lifetime of making it up to her, in the full knowledge she might turn around and leave any day. The love you describe, is the love I feel. It's the love I have always felt. The difference now is that it's there all the time. I am there all the time. It's wonderful, and it's bittersweet knowing it took me so long to get there. You assume that we are all mentally healthy, capable of making rational coherent thoughts, free of obsessions, compulsion or addictions at all times. That is pure fantasy, even for the best of us. Let alone the rest. No, I don't. That's one of the reasons why I wrote this. This is why we tend to find that those who don't love themselves are incapable of properly loving others. I apologize if what I said, and what I'm about to say is triggering. Now, this is where we are probably going to disagree on a fundamental level. You claim that one can love or care about themselves, but still do self-harming or self-destructive things, and not really know why. I hold to the notion that if one is doing such, then they actually don't care about themselves as much as they think they do. I don't really want to go into a long spiel on this at the moment, since for one, I just walked into work, and for another, I've already written an almost novel-length post here. But what I will say is that I had my own struggles in life growing up. I wasn't an addict, mind you, but I've had struggles with self-perception. And the deeper I was into a negative perception of myself, the more I clung to things that may have made me feel better in the short term, but I knew they weren't good for me in the long term. But the more I started to accept myself fully, warts and all, the more I was able to care for myself a whole lot better than I did before. I was able to demand better for myself, and give my care to others with greater conviction. Of course, all this isn't black and white. We could talk about variables and shades of grey all day long, to say nothing of what happens when you add so-called will into the mix. The emotional mind tends to be stronger than the rational one. That's why we tend to need a moment to become clear-headed during stressful situations, but we can become emotional at the drop of a hat. But I just keep finding that self-care and self-respect tends to translate into care and respect for others, and vice versa. This is not the same as self-centeredness, mind you, the feeling of being better than others, or that others around you don't matter. There's always something off about such people, whether it be a hidden inferiority complex, some kind of mental illness, or something else along those lines. This is more about feeling that one is a part of a whole, that you and others around you matter. Love springs from there. Love flows from there. We all have our own crosses to bear, our own hang-ups to deal with. You are right about that. But hang-ups don't necessarily lead to adultery, and I maintain that if one is able to do something like that to someone else, then they don't fully grasp what love is, at least, not at that moment. You claim that you always had that love for your wife that I described, but you also admit that you had to enter sobriety for the love to be there all the time. Examine that statement of yours. It reveals more than you may care to see. Hey, if we all agreed on everything, it would be a dull world. I actually agree with 99% of what you say. I just get kind of riled up when I see what I perceive as blanket statements. Peace out, smile. Perfectly understandable. It probably also doesn't help that I sometimes can be very direct when talking about sensitive subjects. Take care, and see you around. Smile. When it comes to betrayal, I never forgive. Rant. I don't forgive. Yes, you read that correctly. I tend to get some astonished reactions from people when I admit this. Some people express concern. Others judge me as a hateful and or bitter individual. Almost all tell me that I need to reconsider my stance, that it would be better for me and my quality of life if I did. I get it. I do. Basically, we're pretty much told that it's good to forgive others. It's not only considered a kindness to the one you are forgiving, but it is ultimately seen as a kindness to yourself. It's said that when you forgive, you are really doing it more for yourself, since you are letting go of whatever negative feelings you are harboring towards that person. You are no longer giving them emotional power over you, and you are able to move on from whatever they did to you. The thing is, I don't really buy that sentiment. Not fully, anyway. There are two basic reasons for this. The first is that I can and have let go of hurtful things that people have done to me in the past. I don't dwell on them, I don't think about them, and I don't hold them over people's heads. The people who have already made amends are already in no danger of me holding any sort of grudges. And those that haven't, I just don't bother dealing with them in my life. Out of sight, out of mind. I don't need to forgive them to forget about them and move on. It may take a while, but I do move on. The second reason is because of my own perception of what forgiveness is. The best way I can describe it is to think of it in terms of debt. Think about when you owe somebody money, or have to pay back a loan, or owe a service or payment to someone for a service rendered. In these, and other similar cases, you took something for your own gain at another's expense. In this particular example, it's money. Now you owe back what you've taken. If you don't pay up, it usually means things like interest added, or not being able to get anything more until the debt is settled. Sometimes, these debts can be waived away. What do we call it when you waive away the debt? Forgiveness. Sometimes there are good reasons to forgive debts. Maybe the person just isn't able to pay. Maybe whatever loan was given out was offered under unfair circumstances. Maybe some event or circumstance happened that makes the debt irrelevant. Maybe the passage of time has done the same thing. There are many reasons that people or institutions may decide that such material debts may need to be forgiven. And I think they are all understandable. I'm not against this sort of thing happening on this level. But what we need to understand is that when a debt is forgiven, that means it is never paid back. The one who lent the money or service out has taken a loss. What's more, the slate between both parties is now clean, and the one who took on the debt is usually able to take on more debt with the same party they did before. It's one thing for that to happen on a material level. It's another thing when it's on an emotional one. Maybe I'm wrong for thinking this, I'm not perfect, and I don't know it all, but I personally refuse to let people think they can take from me emotionally and mentally and get away with it for free. There is a debt that needs to be repaid, and I will not forgive them of that debt. This doesn't mean that I'm going to be chasing after people for years if they did me some harm. I will not be chasing after that repayment. I will not hound them with that debt. I will not allow it to run my life. I will not dwell on it. But I will not forget, either. And if I ever encounter such people again, I will hold them with the same distrust that any bank would when dealing with a customer who didn't pay back any loans given out to them. This has nothing to do with holding on to hate. I don't feel any hate with such people. I just feel a distrustful detachment in regards to them. They've shown me what they are, and I will simply respond accordingly. You don't have to hate a scorpion to keep a safe distance away so you don't get stung. So how does any of this translate to infidelity? Well, it's probably obvious, but allow me to sum up. When the damaging act of infidelity has been committed, a toll has been taken from the betrayed partner. It's a heavy toll, a heavy debt, and honestly, it demands heavy restitution. That's one of the big reasons why successful reconciliation is so rare. Most WS aren't able to repay the debt. Indeed, many are straight up unwilling. So where does that put the BS? I think that if the BS is considering reconciliation, usually because the WS is asking for it, they should seriously consider if the WS is capable of repaying that debt. That means, well, putting in the work as many like to state it. They have to figure out what is going on in their heads that made them think they were allowed to commit such betrayal, usually through IC. They have to be willing to face the WS's anger, anguish, and changing moods unflinchingly. They have to be willing to deal with triggers that the WS will be experiencing. They have to be willing to give up their autonomy in regards to their communications and location. And they will have to accept that there will be harsh consequences for a repeat betrayal. These, and other stipulations are what the WS will have to repay the debt with, and if they aren't able to do so, after they have already accrued said debt, then there is no further reason for the WS to invest in them, so to speak. Well, what about forgiving the debt? See above. Forgiving them that betrayal means that you aren't just wiping the slate clean, and that you are taking on an emotional and mental loss, but that you are saying they are free to come back and take even more from you. Can you afford that? What if you are dealing with a WS who doesn't want to pay back the debt, put in the work? Well, the answer should be easy to figure out from there, shouldn't it? Again, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I can honestly say that I've actually started feeling better, emotionally and mentally, when I started keeping to these standards. I now refuse to deal with people who feel they can take advantage of me in those areas, and I no longer put up with people who do damage to me in that way, but refuse to make proper amends. I should probably mention that I understand that any decent relationship, no matter the kind, is in a constant state of give and take, and sometimes, we hurt each other without really meaning to. It happens. What's important is what happens afterwards, and how willing we are to make it up to the other. I don't have to deal with them with any sort of bitterness or hatred either, I just cut them out of my life and move on. Any losses I accrue, I pay back myself by investing in myself. I spend time with people who do love and care about it, I engage in life-affirming and life-improving hobbies and activities, I do my best to build up a positive outlook on life. And I don't allow bitterness and hatred to take me down, or lessen any enjoyment I can get out of life. But when it comes to people who have betrayed me in any way, I never forget, and I never forgive. There is a debt to be paid, and they know it. If they ever want me to regard them in any way other than something to avoid, then they need to get about repaying it. It's not my job to remind them of it, and it's best for me not to obsess over it. But there is a high price to pay for betrayal, and while I don't necessarily believe that one should forgive others for their own sakes, I do know that those who betray others need to start paying back karmic debts for their own sakes. That's because trust is lost in buckets but gained back in drops. When we are betrayed, we want to have the trauma go away or for that person to feel remorse and show it. The main problem is, it won't go back to normal overnight. The trauma will float in our thoughts for a long time, and the person that gave us that trauma being in our lives is just a constant reminder that they did it. I understand what you mean about forgiveness, but no one can forgive quickly. It takes time. When you have healed and are in a better place, you will eventually forget and maybe forgive. It's not something that happens on the spot, and some forgive on the spot for fear of the unknown. Reconciliation, as per me, is never a good option. If they wanted to fix, they should have worked with you, not cheat. Anyways, focus on yourself and be indifferent to those who you can't forgive, and focus on the good in life. Thank you for putting this into words. The debt must be paid. I wholeheartedly agree. I cannot trust someone who has betrayed me, so they can't be around. At all, be gone. Beautifully worded analysis. I agree with every word. I think that's what's so concerning and so abusive about those willing to betray, the complete lack of remorse, the smug smarmy thought that they'll get away with it, until they don't. I believe strongly in acceptance, but I do think there are very rare cases where those who show genuine remorse deserve forgiveness if they improve. It's very hard to see the person the same way again. People need to learn respect. Absolutely, 100%. This was wonderful to read. Thank you for sharing. I agree, I just have a hard time caring about being hurt for longer. I tend to forget people hurt me. And I have to actively remind myself how some things made me feel, so I don't forget. Emotionally, the hard feelings about people who hurt me go away pretty fast. So I have to keep making myself remember. But even if my feelings say it's fine, I will never freely give up that debt in my memory. I hold on to it so I don't get hurt again. I cannot agree more, but you word it much better than I ever can. Thank you for this. With me, it's about keeping promises. I have a deal-breaker conversation before any relationship. Betrayal is the top of the list. So it's not about forgiveness or acceptance, it's being true to myself. I didn't marry until I was 38, and my wife moved 3,000 miles for us to be together. The deal-breaker conversation was way more two-sided than ever. So much I put 10,000 in an account, so she could move home if I ever did anything. It was also there if she did something that made me move out. Luckily in the last 18 years that fund has never been touched. Because I know I would never break the no betrayal promises to myself. Preach the good word, my friend. I don't forgive either. I don't get the, it's for your own self BS. If I'm fine, how will it make me any better? Never understood it. I thought it was BS. If you do something to me, I just cut you out of my life, period. Bravo. That's exactly how I feel about this. Okay, well I agree with most of what you wrote. My first question: if you really feel this way, why even write this? Don't take that as a criticism, I am genuinely curious. You don't have to forgive if you don't want to, like you said, it's your life. I wouldn't say that what you describe is what I would describe as forgiving. First of all, I don't think forgiving means forgetting like you do. I also don't think it means removing all consequences. To me it's more like, not hate them, not wish for revenge or them to suffer beyond the consequences of their actions. So I personally think it's entirely plausible to never want to see them again, never trust them again, and still forgive them. The one caveat I would write is that if you are going to stay together, I think you have a better chance if you can get to that point that you describe. Maybe not forget, but not dwell on it. I think it is hard to have a successful marriage without trust and without forgiving the debt, to use your analogy. I do like the concept of penance or earned forgiveness. I think this is a very valid method to reach forgiveness if you try to stay together after an affair. But that being said, I personally think having a happy marriage after an affair is like winning the lottery. This particularly when the spouse being cheated on was a decent, active, normal participant in that marriage. So though I think it's possible, I don't recommend trying. So what do you do with the people who never ask for forgiveness? Well, I have forgiven the person who cheated on me. I got the usual, I am sorry stuff, but not a real heartfelt apology. For a long time I wasn't ready to do that. When I finally was ready, it just sort of happened. It wasn't a hard choice to make. It was more like letting go of an old bag full of rocks I was carrying. Maybe that is relevant to you, maybe not. One thing is for sure, since I have not spoken to this person for over 20 years, so I know it wasn't for her sake. I can only speak for myself, but I will say at least for me, it was a relief, cause like you said, it meant that this person and the situation no longer had any power over me. I just didn't care anymore, which given how much I suffered at first was a profound victory I never even imagined. I think this is what people mean when they say you should do it for yourself. I think some of my unwillingness to forgive was a kind of defense mechanism. I am not sure I felt strong enough to be able to withstand another person cheating on me at the time. So I was very strident on the fact that it was unforgivable, maybe as a warning to anyone interested in me. Maybe as a kind of check on myself to make sure I was being vigilant. Now if you read my writing on here, you know I think cheating is a very big deal. Like I can think of only two things that are worse. You can probably figure what they are. I don't minimize it in any way, it's just that I am sure that I am strong enough now that I would be okay if it happened again. I wasn't sure about that at first, something I also write about a lot too. Being sure helped me feel safe enough to forgive. That is me, not saying it's you. Your reasons are your own, also that doesn't mean I forgot the lessons. I think you got to do what you feel comfortable with, unless there is a religious reason and you are trying to square that, then you don't need to justify that to anyone. Okay, well I agree with most of what you wrote. My first question: if you really feel this way, why even write this? Don't take that as a criticism, I am genuinely curious. You don't have to forgive if you don't want to, like you said, it's your life. Actually, that's a good question. And don't worry, I don't take it as a criticism. I at first wasn't even sure I wanted to write this in the first place. Every time I've explained to someone that I tend not to forgive people, it usually ends with presuming that I'm bitter, or that I can't let go of things, or that I don't know peace, etc. And considering that this SIB, among others, is set up to help people heal, I didn't want to put something up that others may think would hinder that process, despite my intentions. Ultimately though, I just wanted to say to those who are still feeling raw after finding out about an affair that it's okay that they aren't ready to forgive. And from my point of view, they don't have to in order to heal. I realize that my perspective cuts against the grain. But I honestly feel that forgiving people who do harm to you, particularly those who are unrepentant about it, is inviting more harm to yourself. It's letting the other know that there are really no consequences to treating you poorly. And considering that many who are dealing with an affair are trying to learn how to not let their cheating spouse walk all over them, I think this is something that should be pointed out. Granted, you and I are looking at the term forgiveness differently, not surprising. My perspective on forgiveness differs from just about everyone I come across. But I have noticed that whenever someone says that they've forgiven someone, they then carry on as if whatever they have forgiven never happened. It's okay, what's done is done, it's all in the past, let bygones be bygones, we were different people, let's start over, etc. And the one who did the harm acts the same way, particularly if they are the sort to take advantage of people. This just increases the chance of the same harmful act being done again. And with regards to what we talk about on this sub, this is not beneficial to the betrayal. Of course, it's not good to hold on to bitterness, either. We do have to let go and move on from bad experiences with people, otherwise we won't fully heal. I just think that this can be done without forgiving the betrayer for what they've done. It's not as if I think about bad actions towards me all the time, or feel they need to make amends or else. With regards to my ex, to use an example, there's no hatred, and no bitterness. It's been 4 years now since I found out about what she did, and I don't even think about it. Granted, I'm barely in contact with her, which probably helps with that, and if I am, it's just about my son, which to be fair, she hardly ever talks about. Poor kid. When she does come up, I don't feel anything but indifference, and the basic regard that I give to other people I don't know. If her life goes well, so be it. If not, same thing. And for the sake of my son, I remain polite. But I don't pretend that what she did was cool, or didn't matter. There is no bygones be bygones. So just like a bank may say to someone who defaults on a loan, I'm sorry, but you can't get any more loans from us, my ex is now someone who I do not trust. I'm not going to hold a grudge about it, or feel bad about it, or let it ruin my mood. It just is what it is, and I've let go of the feelings I felt 4 years ago. Now, people may say, oh, that means you've forgiven her, you just haven't forgotten. Maybe, but as I like to point out, when a debt you owe is waived, they don't say the debt was forgotten, they say the debt was forgiven. It's in that regard that I use the word forgiveness, and in that light, I feel that not only am I okay with the fact that I won't forgive, but that I think others on this sub may want to hold to the same view, especially if they are trying to come to grips with how they feel about the one that betrayed them. I hope my rambling answered your question. Honestly, considering the posts that you've put up in the past, it's actually a pleasure that my post sparked enough of an interest from you to reply. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.